morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at a new Volcarona card. Volcarona often ends up being kind of cool. I mean, it's not like Fire really needs any new tricks at the moment. Fire has quite a lot to like about it, but still, new Volcarona. And I'm a little bit excited. Our translation here comes from the lovely Joe over at Cerebi.net in conjunction with the lovely Antoine Boulet, one of our very, very favourites here. And starting off with the basics, we've got 120 HP. Not what we really want on a stage 1. There are far too many Pokemon, like Buzzwole for instance, that can do a natural 120. It's one of those numbers Pokemon really like putting into the game, so we'd much rather have 130 in terms of HP. Moohiss, etc. Retreat cost of 1 does mean that U-turn board gives free retreat, and that's a lovely, wonderful thing. Weakness to water is not that bad. I'm expecting Frostmoth decks to start being much better, especially given that Fire decks with stuff like Welder are really good at the moment. But as it stands at the moment, that hasn't started happening, so cool. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. And you are a Fire Pokemon, and that's awesome. Immediate hitting weakness against Grass decks, think Rillaboom, not that they're seeing any play at the moment. And metal decks like Zacian that are seeing a lot of play at the moment. And yeah, fine, you can mention Metal Frying Pan to take away weakness, but I can mention that Tool Scrapper is back now, so we can get rid of that if we need to. Not to mention we've got the aforementioned Welder to attach extra energy while drawing cards, and so many cards like Fire Crystal and Giant Hearth to actually get our energy, and we're looking very, very nice indeed. But what does it actually do? Well, the first attack here is absolutely the best one. Single energy, 80 damage. 80 damage for 1 energy on a single prize Pokemon is a little bit nuts, a little bit good, a little bit awesome. There must be some kind of downside. Well, there is, ladies and gentlemen. There is a downside. You see, this only actually works if the defending Pokemon has damage on. If your opponent's active Pokemon has no damage counters on it, this attack does nothing. Now, I'm not terribly worried. There are plenty of ways to get the damage on there. It's really not something I'm worried about. And we really are. We've got a lot of good ways to do this at the moment. And then we're looking at 80 damage single energy. You're not probably getting giant KOs here, but 80 damage single energy on a single prize Pokemon, that is efficiency, ladies and gentlemen. That is hyper efficient. Now, how are we getting the damage on there? I mean, I would be remiss right now if I didn't mention Volcarona. You see, we've actually got Volcarona GX at the moment, and Volcarona GX has a rather lovely ability that lets you discard a fire energy from your hand and then put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. That's kind of awesome. It's very reminiscent of Decidueye, and Decidueye was very good. Now, it is worth mentioning at this stage that Volcarona has been out for a while. It was in Cosmic Eclipse almost 2 sets ago now, and it hasn't actually seen any play or success up to this stage. I mean, a little bit here and there, but no real long-term sustained success. But it's still there as a potential option, and that alone makes me kind of happy. Discarding the fire energy really isn't a big deal. We got Fire Crystal to get it back from the discard. We got Arcanine that attacks from the discard. We've got Victini Prism Star that does 20 damage for each energy in your discard, and then shuffles, or basic energy, and then shuffles them all back into your deck. So suffice to say, we're really not worried about having to discard a little bit of energy here. So then you drop the 2 damage counters with Volcarona GX, and then you do 80 damage with Volcarona. Bearing in mind, if you are willing to discard another couple of fire energy, you can use Ninetales to drag whatever you want into the active. And what this essentially does is 2 things. It gives you a single prize option, and it gives you a single energy option. I mean, one of the best fire Pokemon we've got around at the moment is Reshiram and Charizard. And Reshiram and Charizard are really good Pokemon. But the main attack on Reshiram and Charizard, we're talking 4 energy, 230 damage. on a free prize Pokemon. When it goes down, you're giving up free prizes, and you've got to get 4 energy on to do the attack. And sometimes that's fine, that's okay. But what if you want to take out a Malamar? 90 HP Malamar. Drag it off the bench into the active with Ninetales, but then you need something to KO it with. You can use that, or you can use Victini Prism Star, which is a 1-prize Pokemon, but then again, you're getting rid of all the energy in the discard. And Victini's basically a one-shot thing. Technically, you can use it as much as you want, but in reality, there's one point during the game where you've got enough energy in the discard to use it, and then when you use it, the chances are you won't get enough energy back in the discard to use it again that game. Every so often you will, but it's really not likely. It just doesn't happen very often. So Victini basically turns into a one-shot deal. So use this. All of a sudden, you're hitting 100 damage, you're taking out that Pokemon, life is good. If you want other ways to get the damage on, don't forget that we've got Galarian Zigzagoon now. That is the Pokemon that when you play it from your hand to your bench, you drop a damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And it does evolve into Obstagoon that when you evolve it, you get to drop 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, if that's the kind of thing that you're into. Or we've got Roxy at the moment. Roxy, the supporter card, lets you discard 2 Pokemon from your hand, and you draw 3 cards for each Pokemon discarded. But if that Pokemon discarded is either a Coughing or a Wheezing, you get to drop 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Oh, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. And the damage counters here are important. You'll notice I'm favouring Pokemon that drop damage counters, and part of it is because it's not using your attack for the turn, so you can then attack with Volcarona immediately, and part of it is a Mew from Unbroken Bonds. Mew from Unbroken Bonds stops damage to bench Pokemon, and that's a bit of a problem, because then they're undamaged and then you do nothing. But everything I'm talking about here, we're talking essentially abilities and trainer cards dropping damage counters, which just ignore Mew entirely, and then you get to do 80 for a single energy. This is really nice. If we look at the other kind of Pokemon that Fire generally tend to play, we're looking at stuff like Volcanion, that does 110 for 2 energy, if you've got another 2 energy somewhere on the field. But if you don't have 4 energy on the field, then Volcanion doesn't actually do very much at all. So 80 for 1 energy starts looking pretty gosh darned good. Victini, but we've already talked about the problem of using Victini regularly. It gets a little bit awkward. Plus, a lot of Fire decks don't generally tend to play many evolved Pokemon at the moment. I mean, they might play Ninetales, but Ninetales isn't an attacker. 3 energy, 90 damage, no thank you. But what if your opponent plays an Obstagoon? And Obstagoon did do very well at the Oceania International Championships. You need an answer for it. Now, the second attack here, 3 energy, 110. It's fine. It's not the reason we play the card by any stretch. You know, Ninetales, 3 energy, 90, it's better than that. Volcanion, 2 energy, 110 if there's 2 somewhere else on the field. I mean, you can use this when there's 3 energy on the field rather than 4. They just have to all be on Volcarona to actually make it work. It's fine. It's an alright little attack. If you're up against Obstagoon, you will be 50 damage short of the KO, but bearing in mind if you're playing stuff like Volcarona GX, who incidentally is also an evolved Pokemon with a decent attack, you need to put 3 energy on and discard 2, but it does 160, so that would be an option for taking out Obstagoon. Or you're playing Zigzagoon and Roxy, etc., you can spread a bit more damage around and you'll probably be alright. I mean, the other thing to mention about Volcarona is that you've got 120 HP. Technically, you'll survive a hit from Obstagoon, but then again, technically, they drop 3 damage counters when they evolve, so in reality, I don't know, maybe less so. I do like this as an option in Fire decks. I do think it's a really nice Pokemon, and when you're talking single price, single energy, decent damage, I kind of get on board with that pretty gosh darn quickly. I'm going to go ahead and give it a nice, solid, ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill free Wassies, because I think this is a kind of Pokemon with a bit of potential. I think it's the kind of Pokemon you need to have in your binder, because it is exactly the kind of thing that you could tech into a fire deck and have a really good option that your opponent did not see coming. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the very definition of a free Wassie card. So that's what I think about it, but I'd be very interested to know what you think about it. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, or you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.